We had a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning now. Okay, as we have an apparent serious oxygen leak.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we've had a problem. He's in a roll and he can't stop it. Performing an evasive maneuver. Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. I think we need to do a little more all-weather testing.
Welcome to space.
Hello, listener, and welcome to Failure to Launch, the space history podcast where we take you through all the mistakes, failures, and explosions that made modern space exploration possible. We are your hosts, Quinn, he, him.
Chris, he, him.
Devon, they, them.
And a ghostly Chris, he, him.
And today we're going to be talking about the Al-Qahir program and Egypt's Cold War missiles. So, as you heard, Devon is a host of the Kill James Bond podcast, as well as the editor for Well, There's Your Problem and 10K Posts, and they have graciously stayed with us through scheduling problems, through sleet and hail in order to come on and talk about this episode. So, Devon, thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here. I've liked the show for a long time. I've wanted to come on for ages. I've just failed to reply to you for nearly a year.
So we were talking before about like the getting guests and like the, oh no, someone didn't respond. It's clearly because they hate me. I'm going to hold that in my head from now on as like the yin to that previous gang of just like, no, they totally want to come on my show. They're just trying to figure out how to accept the offer. They're just so blown away by my words.
By my magnificence.
Quinn is doing the good and professional stuff. I'm going to do the evil and fucked up stuff. What was your biggest draw to wanting to be on the show?
My mother loves space. She's always been really interested in it. It's always been a special interest of hers. So this is maybe not for the three of you. This is for my mum specifically. Oh, okay. So that I could be like, oh, I was on a space podcast you can listen to. And then I listened to a couple of episodes where like my co-host November's been on before and things like that. And
that was a lot of fun.
It seems like a pretty good time. So I'm very happy to be here.
This is also going to be one of those episodes where the actual rocket almost doesn't matter, where like the politics and the history surrounding it is significantly more fun, meaningful, and like anger-inducing.
Just Nasser getting weird with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could write that on his biography.
Oh, Nasser.
It's like like we talked about Korolev way back when, like basically rocket pilling Khrushchev. This is second degree because Khrushchev does it to Nasser.
He spread it further.
This is also a topic that we actually tried to record in early June before scheduling issues on my side forced to stop. Since then, the news has made this episode a lot more relevant, and actually since last night, today is the 22nd of June, it has become even more relevant that history is repeating itself time after time. I am, of course, referring to Israel's current air war against Iran under the pretext of taking out a nuclear weapons program that the entire rest of the professional world is certain is not happening, as well as last night Trump throwing the U.S. in with attacks on again, a nuclear weapons facility that is not building nuclear weapons.
Yep.
While we'll see that there are a lot of differences, a key thing is that the story we are going to talk about is not nearly as fucked up as what is going on right now. I do want to be clear about that. The Mossad in the 1960s was significantly more clear-headed and had a lot less power than they do now. Not to mention, back then, the US, France, basically the West was significantly more willing to say no, fuck off when Israel tried to pull shit like this than they are now. One thing I always come back to is the Suez Crisis kind of somewhat being ended by Eisenhower just going like, hey, knock it the fuck off to the UK, France, and Israel combined. But yeah, at the same time, I do think like present events aside, I do think there are merits to this topic. It is something that we do very much enjoy to talk about on this show. We got rocketry, rogue ex-Nazi scientists, spycraft, and of course, moral panics. We are going to be talking about the Egyptian, or depending on the time frame, it is the United Arab Republic, a Cold War rocket program. I guess I will just get us right into this. I'll probably cut this, but I just kind of remembered for a second, Chris, like a couple of minutes ago when you said, I'm going to handle the evil side. I thought what you meant was every time I sent out a networking request, you sent out a parallel threatening request.
Oh, I see. I mean, I can work on that.
I did get that as well.
I can definitely work on those.
Yeah, like
Well, just good cop, bad copping a potential guest.
Would you like to come on our podcast? And another of just like a picture of your address on like Google Earth.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like,
at the end, it's you're cool. Don't come on failure to launch tomorrow. It's like,
I'm just saying, come on the show and enjoy my riffs. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, that's my evil and fucked up, self-centered view. Like, just
your dark riffs.
My dark and
no one
fucked
can
up.
handle my
I
dark.
glimpse into my dark and fucked up mind, and I draw a rocket with angry eyebrows.
Whoa.
Just a full stare into my unhinged insanity.
Actually, wait, no, you did have the first bleep in the show's history, if I'm not mistaken.
Did we?
Don't you remember, what is it, Space Spider?
Fuck.
Well, if it's something that required me to bleep, then I'm going to have to bleep that too. This is like, it's fractal.
Oh, no.
You didn't have to remind me about check Adam Sandler's Space Spider movie, okay?
Okay, yeah. All right.
I'm not in the position right now where I
still can't eat Tic
Adam,
Tacs.
yeah, we did a bonus episode on an Adam Sandler movie from like 2 years ago where he's in space. He's in
Spaceman.
where he's in a space race with Korea, and he's Czech, and he becomes best friends with a spider with like really detailed lips.
Isabella Rossellini and Paul Dano are in this. Wait, what? Guys, what are you doing? I'm closing this tab. I'm closing the tab. Sorry.
Please save yourself. Save yourself.
Republic.
Save yourself.
No,
I gotta stop doing this. I do this all the time on my podcast as well.
I'm just like, Nasser's just like watching an arms parade, and just in his head, he's imagining the spider lips. God damn, like, I know exactly, like, I know why we need to conquer space. Also, for this episode, I will be relying on a couple of sources. First, the work of Egyptian historian Khaled Fahmy and his studies into the political and military situation of Cold War Egypt. And second, an article by historian Roger Howard called Nasser's Nazi Rockets. Finally, sprinkled here and there, I have the book Nasser and the Missile Age in the Middle East by Owen. As always, all sources will be linked down below in the show notes. And this is one where I would recommend checking out some of these sources if you want, because there is not a whole lot of agreement whenever it comes to like Cold War intelligence operations in general. I've generally, like, on the things where I can't confirm them, I have tried to like make that as clear as possible that we do not know everything. But at the same time, the story still kind of speaks for itself, even if some details have question marks on them. I love the Cold War.
Just a bunch of cool guys acting rationally. Love it.
That's why they called it the Cold War, don't you know?
Mm-hmm.
Never went hot, never once.
Could do with a colder war nowadays. Just like a little bit, maybe. Slightly colder.
Nowadays, the difference is that no one declares war anymore. War is boring. It's passé. Nowadays, everyone's doing preemptive strikes and special military operations. Everyone's trying to find a new, cooler term for war.
I saw J.D. Vance earlier today, right? Like about maybe an hour before we went live, being like, we're not at war with Iran.
We're just
and like, I was like, we're just at war with Iran's nuclear capacity, which is like, oh, we're just at war against not just the state, right? We're not doing the thing where we're like, we're not at war with the people of Iran, we're at war with the state. They're not even doing that, but like, we're at war with a specific amount of the state and not the whole state.
I do love the idea.
What are you doing?
I love the idea of like some guy in the IRGC, like a surface to air missile of just like, no. They haven't declared war on us specifically yet. Just like watching the bombers come in. Like, no. This is the nuke guys' problems.
I hate that we're in the like the nation state equivalent of the
warring states period.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission when it comes to declaring war on sovereign nations.
Sorry, I forgot to ask Congress.
Sorry. Oops.
Well, we're in it now.
Going around to my next door neighbor and just like drop kicking him and just being like, whoa, it's peacetime. It's peacetime, brother. Hold on.
You can't hit me back.
It's time to start a conversation.
Let's just all
He's on the ground, like in a fetal position. I'm like, it's time to start a dialogue.
I run over to my neighbor in a blood frenzy.
Wow. I came over here to negotiate. Is that a nuclear weapon?
No, it was a tube. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Now this
is that
just wandering through like, oh my god. Oh no, sorry. Fuel tank.
Genesis.
Now, the root of the Egyptian missile program actually predates Nasser. It goes all the way back to 1948 and King Farouk. After the Arab-Israeli War, Farouk was looking for ways to modernize and improve his military, and what he landed on was artillery rockets. So back then, like 1948, this is like Soviet Katyushas and whatnot. This is just like firing a shotgun of rockets vaguely in the direction of your enemy. And this being 1948, they were still relatively new and only really being produced by major arms players, so the Soviets and the US. This was a problem because the US, UK, and France all put arms embargoes on the Middle East after 1948, theoretically stemming the flow of weapons to both Israel and Egypt. Israel, however, was able to get around this with various secret deals for weapons or just stealing the plans if they couldn't buy them.
Perfect.
They famously made a deal for French fighter jets, and when that scheme was shut down, they just stole the planes and started making their own bootleg gear. Which is also funny enough how apartheid South Africa got all of its quote-unquote indigenous designs. They just bought them from Israel.
Is that a mirage? No, don't worry. We just wiped the name off.
No,
it's fine.
It's still you get in. It still smells like baguettes and cheese. They can only get rid of so much.
Indigenous designs makes me think of like you're in like the outback and you found carved into a rock an ICBM.
Everything's dimensioned perfectly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
our history.
This is really sophisticated.
Just here's our frame perfect RS-26 SAR mat. There you go. They did it first.
Dude, we need like the Svalbard seed vault, but for designs of various cool vehicles and weapons. You know, like there needs to be a vault with like every single different model of Hilux just in it for future wars. You know, like when the apocalypse happens, you just crack it open and you're king of the wasteland.
I have the Hilux STC, so I'm going to reopen the factories and mass produce them and then conquer the wasteland.
But no, you also need to include some dead ends. Like leave the plans for the Panjandrum in there.
Oh, God.
Just let them have fun with it.
So while Israel was able to get these weapons through these alternate routes, for Egypt, it was a little more difficult. They couldn't arrange any secret deals with any of the major players, and instead they went for an unconventional option, West Germany.
Nice.
Always a good choice. After World War II, West Germany wanted to gain a place on the world stage, but it was legally blocked from a lot of advanced weapon types like ballistic missiles, say. And this first attempt with King Farouk was called CERVA, C-E-R-V-A, and mostly involved a small team of German scientists trying to build Egypt a new artillery rocket. And it fizzled out completely because King Farouk just kind of lost interest after a week, and they ran out of money.
Damn.
Yeah. So the idea goes on the back burner. Farouk is deposed in 1952 by a cadre of soldiers called the Free Officers Movement, and 2 years later, Gamal Abdel Nasser becomes president of Egypt by coupping the last guy. And while rockets were something that the new Egyptian government were always interested in, Nasser wanted to buy from the superpowers, because they obviously made the best ones. It's basically this toss-up between, do you try and build your own domestic weapons that are pretty much bound to be shittier, or do you buy from a superpower and become kind of a proxy for them? And Nasser kind of had a cool way of doing this, or a bad way, wherever you land. His idea was that he would buy a large shipment of Soviet weapons using like Czechoslovakia as a go-between, and then he would turn around and threaten the West that he would make Egypt communist unless they also sold him a bunch of their weapons.
He plays both sides, so he comes out on top.
No, that's the time-honored playbook right there.
Damn. It pissed off both sides.
Damn it.
He was trying something, yeah. All right? That's the important part.
That would have been my master play. Me thinking about every time I play Workers and Resources, and it's like, I want all the cool Western stuff, though.
I can just, yeah, exactly.
I am about to become communist in 2 minutes' time, unless you give me nuke now.
Having two big red buttons on your desk, one of them has the atomic symbol on it, and the other has the hammer and sickle. and you can just smash either one to dramatically change your country at a moment's notice.
Doing the drill tweet, but about communism, where I am racist. I'm trying to heal. $100 will make me less racist. 1,000 will make me extremely less racist. Thank you.
Gamal Abdel Nasser.
It's like I'm going to become communist.
So while this did net Egypt about 100 tanks and fighter jets, it convinced Israel, the UK, and France that they should overthrow Nasser and also annex some Egypt for their trouble. Which I do love that even
we're always on, baby. We're always ready.
I love that even regime change is just going to be like, even then they have to sweeten it of like, we're going to go in, we're going to liberate the people, and some of them are going to be our, come on, guys, we're not doing this for free.
The burden we bear.
of saving you, brackets, quotation marks, saving you.
Brackets, I'm taking your living room.
So fast forward about a year, and the three countries invade Egypt in what becomes known as the Suez Crisis. It's also worth mentioning that while they got advanced Soviet fighter jets, the Egyptian Air Force was mostly destroyed on the ground, in part because it had been heavily coup-proofed. What that meant is that, if you want to coup-proof an army, especially if you've recently couped a country, one of your first steps is generally going to be crippling your own military, because they're the only guys who can coup you back. The downside is that coup-led militaries tend to be pretty shit at fighting wars. A great example being Idi Amin, whose massively bigger army got its ass kicked by, I think, Tanzania. But yeah, basically with this first war, the Egyptian Air Force is very centrally led. Squadron leaders don't have the ability or the authority to take off and defend themselves. It all has to come from Cairo, and Cairo is very slow in responding. Worse, as Israel got newer advanced French jets, the capabilities of Egypt's old Soviet bombers quickly fell apart. And in a turn of events that fans of this show should recognize, a leader is facing an uncertain bomber race, and he gets convinced that a new kind of weapon will solve all of his problems. And I can understand it because this happens in 1957. This is the year that Sputnik 1 and 2 launch, and this is the year that Sputnik panic takes over the globe.
Time-honored tradition.
So you can understand that the weapon that Nasser lands on that is going to solve all of his problems overnight is ballistic missiles.
Yes.
I love how prolific the used car salesman effect is that Korolev it's kicked off. Right?
It's contagious now.
Is it a stretch to say that Korolev is the man who sold the world, Quinn? I think it's
it
his
works
fault.
because
Everyone else wants rockets.
I think it's. I don't think it's necessarily correlation.
Yeah,
it might be just a coincidence.
But Khrushchev becomes heavily invested in rockets, and then he convinces, through his example, Mao becomes incredibly interested in rockets. Nasser now, quote, Nasser and his generals wanted something more than an artillery rocket. Indeed, they sought a ballistic missile that would give them an assured capability to strike at Israel and boost Egypt's leadership credentials in the Arab world and the emerging non-aligned movement. From Nasser's perspective, missiles had a domestic appeal as well, for here was a tangible sign of the progress of the revolution, a proof that even a downtrodden, underdeveloped land of peasants could possess the ultimate credential of the space age, the ballistic missile. So there is definitely a propaganda angle as well. In 1957, missiles are the coolest things you can have.
I mean, aren't they still kind of?
Yeah, they haven't stopped, so I don't reckon.
Unfortunately, the Kremlin was not intent on sharing its new toys. We actually have a letter exchange between Nasser and Khrushchev. I don't have quotes from it, but in it, Khrushchev basically does the potion seller meme to Nasser, and he says that Soviet missiles are too much for Egypt to handle. There's one point where he's sending these letters back and forth, and Khrushchev's like, "Hey, I noticed that you said you wanted short range missiles. What do you think short range means?" And Nasser responds 40 kilometers, and Khrushchev goes, "Well, my short range missiles go 400 kilometers." Just
40 kilometers, pal. How about you pick up a trebuchet? All right, come to me when you've got some ambition.
Yeah, I love the idea of you need a SRBM that needs to go 40 kilometers. And in order to do that, it will ascend probably to 70 kilometers.
Yeah, and then just fall straight down.
It was insane parabola.
Korolev is just no, there's no way we can make it. Yeah, it's going to go all the way to Mars and back. I'm sorry. It's the only way it'll fly that short.
No, we're doing fractional orbital bombardment for 40-kilometer range. It's just going to go all the way around.
Khrushchev then went further, writing that Egyptian excitement over the missiles might lead to, quote, undesirable actions, i.e. that Nasser would get so hyped over his new weapons that he would immediately start a war just for, like, to see how they worked.
All right. World War One.
This is some,
mood.
like, insults. Yeah, also fair, yeah.
That is what we did straight the fuck away.
We have all these cool
How do
new
we know
toys,
if
and
they
we want
work?
to test them out so bad.
Exactly.
My skin's gonna itch if I can't fire this thing. Come on.
Khrushchev just all throughout this basically just insulting Nasser. Like, they're not having great relationships at the time, but like they're not like they just sold them a whole bunch of fighter jets and whatnot, and Khrushchev is like, whoa, Junior, you like puts a hand to like block him from the rockets, like, buddy, come on.
It's so paternalistic.
Yes,
So
yeah.
going to be like half funded by the Soviets, which is like, I don't know about the missiles though, pal. I don't know if you can handle that yet.
Yeah, you have to build up your relationship score with the Soviet Union. And this is the problem, you're trying to build up relationship scores with both blocks. You haven't reached the 80% threshold. The little pink heart hasn't appeared over Khrushchev's head yet. So no, you can't unlock the higher tier gear.
I'm waking up every morning. I'm giving Khrushchev a gift. It's like chocolate bar.
Yeah.
Bunch of flowers.
Doing my
It's like,
doing my
ding,
doing
ding,
my
ding, ding,
Soviet rep grinds today.
Exactly.
Gotta get my weeklies done.
We need to make like a meme image of a Scud launcher, but it's got like the orange rarity, like legendary background around it.
It must be like level 17 to use this. It's like, fuck. Come on.
R-17, coincidentally, the name of the Scud. But yeah, like, because he can't get the legendary tier Soviet stuff, he's going to make some like white tier Egyptian rockets instead.
You gotta prove.
Fair enough. If his ambitions are 40 kilometers, fair play. Like,
yeah, like you know, just
angling
strap
your rocket like down.
some fireworks together, and you're good to go.
Exactly.
So with that, Nasser was once again stymied in his rocket dreams. With buying them out of the question, he actually decided to dust off King Farouk's old plans, and they would build their own domestic missile program. And it was a good time for it. 1958 saw Nasser embarking on a major campaign to make Egypt a shining example of self-sufficiency among Arab nations. At the same time, Egypt and Syria united to form the United Arab Republic. Although all of the rocketry and everything we're going to be talking about here would remain solidly Egyptian, and by the time the rockets actually come to pass, the Syrians would already have left in 1961, even though Egypt would continue calling itself the United Arab Republic, despite being the sole member.
I would say it staying Egyptian was the core problem.
Yeah.
The UAR. It's like, just let it be a little bit Syrian. It was a Syrian idea. Like, they came to Nasser with it. They were like, let's join up. Let's join up. And then he was like, all right.
Idea. You can join up.
He wasn't about it, but it was like, I guess if you're saying that I can have another country, that'll be fine.
They're just saying like, yeah, like we can unify, we can all work together. And he's just stroking his chin like, all of it belonging to me. Yeah, you make a very good point.
All the higher ups are Egyptian. Yeah, just... buddy.
And at the same time, West Germany was eager to get back into the arms trade again. So like 10 years later, they're still trying to get into the arms trade. And it's worth mentioning that Germany is currently one of Egypt's like biggest arms providers. Germany has kind of carved itself out a weird niche of countries around the world that buy, like, they don't sell to a lot of countries, but the countries they do sell to buy like 80% from them. It's weird. So yeah, West Germany wants to get back into this. East Germany too, but they're not really in the rocket business. And because these guys, like, if West Germany goes to work for Egypt, it wouldn't be work being done in West Germany, which would be a way to get around all of these banned weapons exports. They would basically offshore the design and manufacturing. I don't have a joke for this. I don't have a bit for this. It's just like, yeah, this is the thing that always happens.
Wasserfall.
All right. Okay. I mean, this looks like a rocket. You know, hand to God, that's what a rocket looks like to me.
And it's honestly, we're probably going to wind up talking about this more on future episodes, but it's very interesting how the post-war portioning out of German like scientific know-how goes, and specifically with this missile. So this is going to be a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to make it clear because it's important to understand for a lot of rocket development history, like how all of this fits together. The bulk of the post-World War II scientist recruitment efforts, that is your American Operation Paperclip and Soviet Operation Oso Aviakim, These were focused on the V2 missile program and whoever had worked as part of it. And you can see the influence in the earliest missiles that both the US and the USSR produced.
Very German-looking missiles, oddly.
Oh, yeah.
Is that one of your missiles or one of ours? It's like,
yeah, like if World War III had started in like early 1950s, it would just be identical V2s flying across east and west, hastily painted over with a red star and a blue star, respectively.
Yeah, like visibly airbrushed over the swastikas.
You can still make out the kind of like darker sections where it had the black and white checkerboard. But the V2 was not the only Nazi rocket program, and it wasn't the only one to influence post-war rocket development. Wasserfall, meaning waterfall, was a German military project started in 1941 to build the world's first surface-to-air missile, or as Walter Dornberger pitched it, a flak missile. And brackets, it was being pitched directly to Hitler because that's what Walter Dornberger did. He was kind of Hitler's rocket hype man.
He was the rocket whisperer.
Yeah, he was kind of like... Korolev kind of was the hype man for the Soviet Union. For Germany, it was Dornberger, and then the US had, I think, Medorus, because von Braun was not actually that charismatic one-on-one, and people kind of found him off-putting.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
This guy's got some odd views. I don't know.
Yeah, like he's designing the missile, and all the technicians are just like, how am I going to get my hands in there? That's way too small an access. No, the children, they will they can work on it there.
Fuck.
Once the rocket goes up,
who cares?
Comes down again, 40 kilometers away. That's not my department.
God, Wasserfall was so cursed. Just manual command.
Well, yeah. So we're actually going to get into that, and that does very much play into this story. Compared to the V2. The waterfall was much smaller, only 8 meters tall, and it carried a warhead 1/5 that of the V2. It was also modified from the V2, so sometimes people call it like a descendant. And its objective was simple. It was going to wait around the German countryside until Allied bombers flew overhead, launch, and with the help of manual radio guidance from the ground, detonate close enough to hopefully take some of them down. We don't know how effective it would have been since it never saw action, but based on other German wonder weapons like the V2, it may have gotten some kills and had zero impact on the war. And like the V2, it probably would have caused more harm than good by, like, taking away resources. But I still want to talk about it because the Nazis ran into a lot of the same problems that other designers would decades later. Mostly because the Wasserfall was meant to be defensive, it had to sit in place and be ready to launch as soon as Allied bombers appeared, which meant it couldn't be refueled on the pad like the V2. It needed storable fuels that could be left in the tank, which in rocket terms is almost always hypergulls, which means fuels that detonate as soon as they make contact. And the Nazis, like late war Nazis, loved them some hypergulls in close proximity to human bodies. In the case of the Wasserfall, they selected RFNA, or red fuming nitric acid, my personal favorite. This is one of the granddaddies. Like nowadays, people use IRFNA, inhibited red fuming nitric acid, and it's still incredibly hellish and dangerous. This is like all of the safeties taken off of this chemical. It will like melt you, burn you, light you on fire. It will kill you in so many ways.
I've got a riff. Hypergall is what happens when Asterix novelists drink Getafix's potion. You know?
Oh, just deploying RFNA on the Roman lead. Oh, dude.
Was that good?
I'm trying to think like
that's all I have. Thanks.
No, it works. I'm trying to think of like Greek fire, but you're loading it with like modern rocket fuels.
I mean, it could work.
Now, the Wasserfall's development did not go well. It was headed up by a Dr. Walter Thiel, spelled the same way. I have no clue if there's a relation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a story of launchpad detonations, fizzled launches, and erratic targeting systems. In fact, one Wasserfall guidance system that they mounted on a test V2 famously went so wrong that it crashed in Sweden, and the Swedish government immediately sold it to the British.
Perfect. Love it.
It just not even
Deals.
Not even like spycraft or anything. They just put up a for sale like basically just like, yo, you want this?
Just like a car boot, just like, yeah, is this you interested?
I love the idea of like, I'm just thinking about this, like your neighbor like launches their experimental rocket into your yard and you hate them so much that you're like, hey, other neighbor who has beef with this neighbor, you want to buy their thing from me? Like, immediately paying them back by selling their special thing to someone else.
They kick the football into my yard, and I'm immediately on eBay with it. Just like, all right, fuck you. You're not getting it back, pal.
I'm hoping there was a bidding war between the Germans and the British. Like the Swedish were just open about all of this. I'm just like, yo, how much do you really want this rocket back?
Never miss the opportunity to turn your own tragedy into profit, you know?
Of course.
Deals.
Yo, this rocket
Non-stop
program isn't
deals.
going good. What if we sold it to the British?
I'll buy anything, those fuckers.
The project had even more problems when a British bombing raid of the German rocket plant in Peenemünde succeeded in killing Dr. Walter Thiel, inshallah. And it killed him accidentally because he was not the target. Operation Hydra was meant to be hitting V2 projects, and it accidentally wiped out Waterfall instead.
Hey, rocket's a rocket. They hit it.
Yeah.
Easy.
Easy clap.
It's all the
I'm always
hyperglyphs that they were
winning, yeah.
storing on site.
Although I do also have to say that it killed a lot more slave laborers than it did any Germans whatsoever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Quinn, I don't mean to detract from the weight of the moment, but I'm being flashbanged by the name of this place.
Peenemünde.
Peen.
Oh, I get it.
Peenemund. It's Latin for like normal penis.
This is why we bring a professional on.
Legend has it
Thank
that
you.
like the most statistically average peen exists here.
That's what they were trying to find. Like, this was a German thing that they were doing. Like, what is the normalist penis for person to have?
It's like a Berliner situation. It's actually named after like a very specific kind of pastry they make there.
I would maybe try it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It's meat
Just give it a go.
filled.
Me at my phallus launch facility at Peenemünde, you know, like
No, I just have the mental image of whoever this teal guy is just outside, just a glass of hypergulls in each hand, looking up at the planes.
Guy just, yeah, like he's not even supposed to be there. He's just like strolling outside at the V2 launch sites.
oh, he's holding like 2 containers of things that should definitely not be mixed
That's
in
what I'm
each
saying,
hand.
yeah.
Desperately running for the bunker while my T-Soff and C-Stoff are just like spilling behind me. So anyway, after the war, after all the V2 scraps had been picked over by the Americans and the Soviets, the Waterfall program was mostly ignored. Some of its scientists went on to work for the British or French, like they were the B team of the Nazi German rocket scientists. And as such, the Americans and Soviets were both kind of just like, who gives a shit? So some of them go to work for the British and French. Some of them are allowed to stay in Germany and they become like professors at universities. It was this core of scientists, the guys who were too incompetent to be snagged by Paperclip or Oso Aviakum, that became, it's weird, these guys become ex-Nazi free agent rocket scientists. Compared to like the Paperclip scientists, like who were talent scouted, they got to negotiate their contracts, and they famously almost got kidnapped by Vasily Stalin that one time. These guys would work for whoever. Like they wind up working for the British, the French, Libya, Brazil, South Africa, North Korea, Argentina. Some of them do like weird contract work for the Americans and Soviets.
Some real Montessori rocket scientists here.
Yeah.
Like, I love the Nazi rocket scientists that are picked last for the football match. Like, just like, whatever. We'll teach you how to make rockets. North Korea, all right.
Like what's on your resume? Like, oh, did your rocket ever take off? Well, I guess we'll take you. Yeah, being left with the awkward kids at the end of the dodgeball picking.
They got all the all-stars already, and we've just got the kind of like, they're sort of weedy, like, don't really know what they're doing, but...
Pretty sure that guy's
we'll take
licking
him,
his
come
slide
on.
rule. But this also means that, like, unless... So in the history of rocket proliferation and where all these designs come from, most of it comes from the V2. So, like, if you buy rockets from America or the Soviet Union, like, the first Chinese rockets look like V2s. A lot of the, like, if you are supplied by the Soviets or the Americans, your rockets will descend from V2s. If you are anywhere else in this, like, weird free agent space, your rockets will more often descend from this failed surface-to-air missile. And, like, by pure number of countries, the Wasserfall winds up influencing more than the V2. And it is worth mentioning that even the Soviets and the Americans did wind up doing a bit of work on their own Wasserfall-derived rockets. So yeah, all of these countries, a lot of them wind up with waterfall-derived missiles instead of V2 designs. And Egypt was no different. In 1958, with Cairo's approval, arms dealers in Europe started reaching out to many unemployed German rocket scientists.
Waiting for their time to shine.
Some of these guys were ex-Nazis, some were just students who had come up in the decades since the war. And it was really easy to recruit them. Quote, "The great surge in post-war rocket development, fueled largely by German scientists captured after World War II, had entered a lull. France, an early recruiter of German rocketry talent, was exploring manned bombers for its future nuclear weapons delivery system, while the UK's efforts were hamstrung by tight budgets and a seeming inability to produce a delivery platform for its nuclear weapons." I like how they don't give an actual reason for why it failed. They just say, like, they were unable to do it.
The Brits just couldn't hack
Could
it.
not.
They literally just couldn't figure this out.
Too many problems to dissect.
Like, no delivery mechanism is the stupidest problem now. We've got the rocket.
the nuke.
We just can't figure out how to get it to fire.
We've got the rocket, we've got the nuke. They're both just sitting next to each other, and a bunch of dudes are like scratching their head like, do we weld it? They're just building like a...
I say, old boy, have you got any idea what to do with this nuclear weapon?
They're just like building a wooden scaffolding for it on top of the rocket. West Germany was also home to unemployed scientists who had recently been discarded after the Soviets and French had exhausted their knowledge of rocketry and aviation. So one thing with the Soviets is basically, I don't want to give them too much credit because they also still very much do the whole like, no, we're going to exploit all of this for what it's worth. But once they're done with them, they basically go, all right, fuck off back to Germany now.
Bye-bye.
Of just like, all right, yeah, you are no longer relevant. Leave.
I mean,
which, you know, fair enough.
That's the sort of respect that I think Germans should be being treated with.
Pound sand.
All right,
I will exploit you. I will like squeeze out every bit of knowledge you have, and then fuck off back to Berlin. In short, West Germany was a buyer's market for would-be rocket enthusiasts like the Egyptians, who took prompt advantage of the opportunities that lay before them. There's just like the unemployment office, and every single one of the guys in there has worked on war crimes in some way.
It's almost like a prerequisite for them.
While there was an entire team that was slowly cobbled together in Cairo out of German, Swiss, and Austrian scientists, the main players were some guys that fans of this show may have heard of before: Eugen Sanger and Wolfgang Pils. While Pils worked on the V2 program during World War II, Sanger was weird. Too weird even for Nazi Germany at their like most desperate time. This guy was just too incompetent a rocket scientist. If you remember our series on Lutz Kaiser and Otrag, Sanger was the guy who designed the Silbervogel, or Silverbird, a hypersonic suborbital bomber that's... It's weird, it's often lumped in with, like, doomed end-of-war Nazi projects, despite the fact that it was designed in 1938. To, like, give you an idea, Eugen Sanger was already at, like, superweapon brain rot that German scientists got to before the war even started.
Oh boy, he was really cooking. Yeah,
and now the Egyptians are about to learn the hard way how falsified his CV is. At the same time, like, he was very good at hyping himself. He was so good at hyping himself, in fact, that Stalin tried to kidnap him. He sent an entire team of NKVD kidnappers, and he also sent his son Vasily along. And Vasily fucked up and got the team captured.
You got to give him the opportunity to try, though. Yeah, like a fail son, like... You got to give him a go. It's like Mark Thatcher's failed coup in Equatorial Guinea. You got to like let him try, and if it doesn't work out, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, everyone else is just kind of going along because it's like send your son to work day.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, little guy, you can do it.
Eugen Sanger is wearing like pads in case Vasily tries to stab him or something. Again, I love. We talked about it more in that older series that Nate was on way back when.
Mm-hmm.
The NKVD like kidnap guys are staking out Sanger's home, and then they just notice Vasily walking towards the front door. He knocks on it and just goes like, "Yo, have you ever heard of my dad, Stalin?" At which point they immediately call the cops.
You know what? It probably works out great inside the Soviet Union. Is that my dad, Stalin? That probably is really effective.
But outside, yeah, he just hasn't gotten used to that.
Yeah. I have no idea about stealth at all, just walking right up to the front door.
He's just got a big portrait of Stalin. He's like pointing like,
It's my dad. It's my dad. I'm here to kidnap you. Do you want to get in the van now? Or... Oh,
he's just gone. Like waving at the agents across the street. Guys, over here. Say hi. Say hi to my new friend Sanger.
Just door gets slammed in his face. Oh, don't worry, he's just going to pack.
He'll be out in a minute.
Oh, the police escort is here. Wonderful.
He'll be out any minute now.
Fucking Vasily Stalin sitting on your doorstep in the rain like a lost puppy, begging you to come to the Soviet Union so that his dad can love him.
Leaning casually against your fence, like with a smile on his face. He'll look at his watch every few minutes, but nothing changes.
Yeah.
Like he's just patiently waiting for
He's
you to
too
come
polite.
out for 17 consecutive hours.
So yeah, this is Eugen Sanger. This is a guy who is like too deranged for the Nazis. The Soviets are repeatedly trying to convince Stalin, like, no, this guy is insane. Do not do this. And Egypt makes him the head designer for their new rocket program.
Fantastic.
So we are really starting off strong with this one.
It's like the Z team at this point, and it's only going to get more so. Because he was joined by scientists like Paul Jens Gorka. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm just going to say it's Gorka because it's funny.
Definitely Gorka, yeah.
We've got Teal, we've got Gorka. Let's see how many more of these guys have roots in ex-Nazi Egyptian rocket programs. Hans Kleinwachter and Heinz Krug. And they all got set up in Cairo in varying degrees of permanence. For example, Sanger technically still worked at the University of Stuttgart and claimed that all the times he went off to secret Egyptian missile sites, he was just giving lectures there. Now, the actual proper rocket development work started in 1959 with the creation of the Bureau of Special Military Projects. And while it had mixed results, I think it's interesting and impressive that it even managed to get that far, because it was a complete mess. Not just organizationally, but doctrinally. For example, all of the leads of the program were imported from the West and took Western design philosophies with them, but the actual technicians and engineers had all been educated in the Soviet Union and took Soviet techniques with them. So, these guys do not jive. The engineers hate the technicians. Your boss doesn't speak Arabic.
No one's talking to each other. These are the Z team of rocket scientists. But we can absolutely crank out like a space program.
We are
I
going
reckon.
strong.
Yeah, no worries.
Another issue was that Egypt was starting fresher than any country I've ever seen in rocketry. They didn't have the tooling or the factories to make rocket parts. They didn't have the tools to make the rocket parts. And this is something I always want to hammer on whenever we talk about like precision tooling. You can't just build a really precise hammer right away.
Mm-hmm.
You have to kind of slowly build up to it. You make a decent hammer, and you use that to make a good hammer, and then you use that to make an incredibly precise hammer. So like it takes time. And the Egyptians basically, Nasser basically ordered them to speed run it. They didn't have wind tunnels or test stands or launch sites or anything, and they still plowed on with the designs anyway.
Jesus Christ.
To get around this,
It's confidence. It's confidence is what it is. We'll figure this out.
they will tremble when they see the might of our spirit.
Yeah, you come up with the rockets. We'll figure out like what a lathe is in a couple of minutes. I'm like, don't
It's
worry.
vibe coding, but just for an entire space program. Everyone's just kind of like, just go out there, just, do whatever, man.
It's just hiring a guy and being like, can you make us a rocket? And you haven't given him anything at all. Just like, yeah, okay.
Nothing makes me more upset in this modern age than hearing the term vibe coding.
I don't know enough German. I'm trying to think of a German word that could like vibe. Weimar coding. Fuck. I don't know.
I think that you
Yeah.
need to consult a professional for that one.
Okay, that's what the new
Does anyone know
networking
any?
target is going to be. Just like messaging random historians like, yo, what can you tell us about how vibes based these rocket programs were?
What, future bonus episode? Rating? Just rating projects by their vibes.
Tier list by vibes. So yeah, to get around these problems, sometimes the Egyptians imported equipment through shell companies set up in West Germany. But a lot of the time, the work never approached Egypt's borders. It was totally remote. Most of the scientists also already had jobs at universities or factories with precision tools and instruments, so like basically why move them? This is also famously the strategy that Saddam Hussein would later use for his mega gun that Gerald Bull designed him. He got the parts built at like a British metalworks and just said like those are oil pipes, and hoped no one would notice that they were rifled.
Smart. That's smart.
It makes
You
a
have to
vortex in
front.
the oil.
If you spin the oil, it goes faster. Come on.
You've seen a washing machine. Come on.
Saddam covering this one up by like pointing out like the like, how do I explain this? Like, you ever see those videos of like the hillbilliest ass dudes you've ever seen, and they're like chugging a fucking like beverage out of a bottle?
Oh yeah,
and they
yeah.
swirl
The
it
Pangzai
first?
tornado
Yeah.
style. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so Saddam just sells you on it like the oil pipe. It's like that, but it'll make it go faster, and then
Like, wow, ooh, it sounds to me quite a lot like you guys have unspun oils, which is kind of embarrassing in the 21st century.
You have to realign your oils.
Just keep fronted. Wow, you don't spin your oils?
George
Jesus
Bush
Christ.
just like reading that and just like,
Supposed to be
my
a superpower.
God, we need to get into there fast.
You got to fix your
We gotta
oils
spin
chakra
these
by
oils.
spinning it.
They're spinning their oils out there.
Unfortunately, the Egyptians were not as hot on OPSEC. One of their front companies in Germany was literally just named Mechanical Corporation, while another was named Linda.
Linda.
I have no idea why.
Don't worry, I work at Parts Corp.
I love Parts Corp. Are you fucking kidding me?
Parts Corp is really fucking good.
Hello, I am engineer at Mechanical Corp.
Most evil company in like the 19th century in America. Just Parts Corp.
I feel like that fucks kind of hard though, because based off of what you're saying, Quinn, is that in order to have a production chain, you have to start small, and so therefore small is always necessary. So
Yes.
if you work at the doohickey factory, you will never be out of work because people will always need doohickeys.
And then you can subcontract out to the thingamajig.
Egypt cannot produce domestic doohickeys good enough, and they don't want to buy the superpower doohickeys.
Yeah, it's the doohickey gap.
You do not want to wind up a proxy of a superpower because you're reliant on them for your doohickeys.
Look at this guy. He's using thingamajigs. What a false prophet.
Sort of work in doohickey derivatives.
Modern doohickeys are all based on Nazi thingamajigs, and I think this needs to be recognized.
I really want to own a thingy factory now. I love the idea of this.
Yeah, you need the jig factory and the thingy factory in order to produce them at another site in Egypt.
Egypt, no domestic manufacturing capacity for Thingable at all. Like nothing.
Huge weakness, really. But, good.
They can hit a tchotchke, maybe. Good.
Tchotchke proliferation needs to be stopped. Yeah.
we figure that we're gonna have tchotchkes in like 10 years, maybe. We need to get in there
The
now.
Tchotchke Limitation Act, yeah.
Doing a preemptive strike on the tchotchke factory.
So yeah, fuck. So yeah, the Egyptians were not as good at OPSEC, and foreign intelligence agencies were generally aware of Egypt's, like they were aware of the earlier attempts at rockets. So this time it was basically like, oh, they're doing the thing again. Like Nasser is doing the same thing that the previous guy and King Farouk had done.
Mm.
And most agencies did not care because everybody was building rockets in 1959. The Mossad, however, were interested because they figured that any missile that Egypt ever produced would be immediately loaded with all of Egypt's nuclear weapons and fired on Israel immediately.
That's the sensible position.
course,
Like
of
that's
course.
the smart idea.
Oh,
But
God.
even they got bogged down in debate over what to do about it. Basically, they were split into two conflicting teams that I am going to name the paranoid faction and the racist faction. The paranoid faction thought that these very tiny missiles that Egypt was building would be equipped with dirty bombs, while the racist faction thought that Egyptians simply weren't capable of building and operating rockets.
Fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it. They're not going to manage. Just nothing ever happens.
The worst
faction.
part
Pretty
is
good.
that both factions, they wind up going with both plans because, spoiler alert, even whenever it reaches its planned point, the Egyptian rockets are complete shit. And yet, Israel is going to start several international incidents in order to prevent these tiny little dinky rockets that carry about a grenade's worth of warhead apiece.
That seems totally unlike
No.
the Israelis.
So yeah, these two factions went back and forth for about 3 years, keeping tabs on the German scientists but not actively doing anything to prevent them. 1962 changed that. Hello, listener, and welcome to the mid-reel ad. If you enjoy Failure to Launch, more bad space history, and you want to hear more of it more often, there is an option, the FTL Patreon. Signing up at any tier gets you access to monthly bonus episodes and Q&As, and joining an elevated tier gets you even more content, like Chris-narrated minisodes. If that sounds good, you can sign up at www.patreon.com/failure to launch. And now, back to the episode.
Operation Damocles.
On July 21st, 1962, Nasser invited a group of international journalists out to a remote test site in Wadi al-Natrun, halfway between Cairo and Alexandria. While Nasser and other officials crowded into a protected bunker, the journalists were left exposed above on a small viewing stand, which I do appreciate. It's like observing a nuclear blast. Everyone else puts on your goggles and you put on your like little 3D glasses that they've given you.
Don't worry, just cover your eyes with your hands when it goes off.
Quote, at 0950 Cairo time, an explosion was heard several miles from the journalist's bivouac. A single missile-shaped projectile was seen lifting into the clean desert sky where, in the words of one U.S. correspondent, it pierced a long white cloud bank and later, in plain view, slowly arced north toward the Mediterranean. 3 other launches occurred within 30-minute intervals before the correspondents and government representatives were crowded back onto buses for the return trip to Cairo. As they headed for Cairo, Egyptian government radio began to trumpet a resonating message. The United Arab Republic has entered the missile age.
Fantastic.
All right.
Let me just snap to a picture. That's what they're celebrating. That right there, that is the United Arab Republic
Very
entering the missile.
sphincter-like.
Yeah, I don't like the ridges.
That looks like one of the Lynch Dune sandworms a little bit.
Oh god, it
at the end
does.
there.
Yeah. And all of the Al-Qahir, which means conqueror missiles, have that same, like there's bigger ones, there's smaller ones. They all have that weird sphincter shape on the nozzle.
They all have a butthole.
Can you go up to the slide before? I love the idea of like the culmination of all of their military budget spending for X number of years, and like this is what they have on display: is this singular truck with one rocket on it.
I guarantee. Yeah, for context, listener,
The Brits are like, oh, we could put it on a truck.
just driving it towards the Fulda Gap.
Fuck! That'll do.
And yeah, listener, this looks like something that I could make out of toilet paper rolls.
It looks like baby's first Scud.
This is,
Yeah.
it's the scuffed Scud.
It's the Scud we have at home.
This looks like you've got a standard kind of like large ute here, and the missile is being held up by 2 triangular platforms with just sort of like a depression out of the top. It looks so basic.
Yep.
It looks like it's made out of like children's play blocks.
This is Dad. Can we go to McDonald's? No, we have food at home.
Yeah.
We're doing a disservice to Scuds by calling this a Scud, I feel.
Fair enough.
What those journalists had just witnessed was the results of the German-Egyptian rocket program, the Al-Qahir 1 and Al-Qahir 3 ballistic missiles. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. 2 days later, on the 10th anniversary of the overthrow of King Farouk, Nasser held a huge parade in which dozens of missiles on trucks were the main attraction. And for those wondering, yes, the tests were rushed to meet the deadline for the anniversary, which makes this another example of our favorite thing. Wouldn't it be nice to have something for the holidays?
Beautiful. I love it.
For
Boys will
those
love
who are
this.
newer to the show, our favorite thing is whenever political requirements or holidays rush the development of a rocket. It always turns out well.
A delayed rocket is eventually good.
A rushed rocket gets you, I don't know, a dead dog.
Mm.
And these tests kicked off a sort of mini Sputnik panic in the region. This wasn't the first time that Egypt had tested their rockets, though. In fact, they'd admitted that an earlier test in March had failed. Though they didn't say that the failure had nearly killed the commander-in-chief of the Egyptian military.
Fuck me.
It just went off course and nearly slammed into the visitor's deck.
God, I'm stuck on that, Devon. A delayed rocket is eventually good, but a rushed rocket explodes on the pad. A rushed rocket explodes before it reaches orbit.
Rushed rocket hits the observation decks directly.
Then again, if I were the head of the Egyptian military, I might be more convinced that it works. Because, like, holy shit, it nearly killed a bunch of soldiers. This thing's gonna be great.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're building this for.
It's a soldier-seeking missile.
Whoa, it's good.
Everyone around the launch site has to be wearing casual clothes at all times, or else it will target anyone in a uniform.
Pop that collar, soldier. Jesus Christ.
Do you have any idea? Yeah.
It'll kill us all.
Now, despite that, every nation reacted with shock to the sudden realization that Egypt had built their own missiles and that, while crude, they could actually fly. We are going to get into some of the trickery here at the end, but I want to focus on the politics and history for now, because they did not really fly that good.
Mm-hmm.
Chief among those panicking was Isser Harel, and he's the head of the Mossad.
Mhm.
He viewed these new tiny dinky little missiles as an immediate and world-shattering threat to Israel and demanded that the Prime Minister, Benjamin Ben-Gurion, greenlight the Mossad to do whatever it took to stop these scientists. Never mind the fact that the missiles were already being tested, and they seem to be going into production, so the design phase is over.
Yeah, like killing the scientists not going to do
Like,
that much
dude,
at this stage.
the factories are churning.
They've got tens of these things now.
They got dozens of them. How many dozens are we?
Pointing at the pic.
They've got a dozen now, but they could have a baker's dozen next year. Do you have any idea what a madman could do with this many missiles?
I'm caught up on the idea that, like, they have a baker's dozen of SRBMs, and then, you know, because this is a military dictatorship, they'll eventually put them on a military parade all together at once, and then they just get all taken out in a coordinated airstrike, and then it's just like, well, now what are you going to do?
Well,
Like,
if they send a dozen, they always, it's the missile you can't see. It's the 13th. It's the last one.
and then they launch it, and then it lands, and
It
blows up.
It kills the head of the military of Egypt.
It kills the head of the military, or it like blows up in a field somewhere, because, you know, I'm pretty sure that SRBMs in this time, especially if they're made by Egypt, they're not particularly accurate.
We will get to it, but a major theme with the Al-Qahar is that it's designed off of the waterfall, and the waterfall was designed to have radio guidance, which means that no one who has ever worked on the waterfall has ever designed a ballistic missile guidance system. So they just didn't.
It's not my concern.
Nope.
The waterfall. There's one big thing that I'm getting tangled in here. The waterfall was essentially like the first sort of SAM.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a big difference between the functionality of the surface-to-air missile and the short-range ballistic missile. Can you guess what that might be?
Well, yeah,
One of them goes up and stays up. The other one goes up and then comes back down.
Fact check, surface-to-air missiles fall down. They do not just keep going forever.
They just keep going
in a straight
They
line.
explode.
no, they go to the big bomber in the sky.
Inventing the missile that has no payload and is just a spear.
No guidance.
And it will
yeah.
fall back down. It will fall back down. We have to recover it.
Just having fun, I guess, at that point.
This is like the only guy on the planet who watches this military parade, watches that like dinky little missile built out of like a cylinder, a cone, and 4 fins, and goes like, my God.
It's like, holy
I
shit.
need to start a war over this immediately. Yet taking off his glasses.
They put it on a truck.
Just kicking a door down. We gotta start killing civilians. Now! We gotta go! They got a cardboard tube. Like, they've built one of those parachutes that can land an egg safely at school. It's time.
Oh, if they just recruited new German scientists by just going to like high schools, just like, yeah, like you have to get these ping pong balls through that circle, and like some kid does it and it's like, my God, like they're mapping out the ballistic trajectory, desperately taking notes.
Yeah, the US has all the top rocket guys, so does the USSR. We've got all the Z team guys. Now we've had to go even further down.
Yeah.
We've got like primary school kids coming over here to tell us about how to make rockets.
I love the idea of like Operation Paperclip and Oso Aviakum being like so thorough that even post-war Germany's kindergarten teachers are like the Z team.
They're training under one of their top rocket scientists.
Some rocket scientist just like watches a kid holding up a crayon, and then he notices that it's like a cylinder with a cone on top. Like, oh, my God. Guys, we have to go right now.
Send this kid to Egypt now. Or not in Egypt, because we're not making him in Egypt. Send this kid to somewhere.
I'm glued to this idea of Quinn of Mossad being like, again, like going after like the scientists or just like after like civilians or something. And I'm just thinking about like Henry Kissinger. Like, you have to be the same type of person.
Kissinger was against this.
Yeah, totally.
Kissinger thought this.
Wow.
This is one of the weirder things.
This is Kissinger like decades before like he fully activated though, right? So because you know eventually he'll look back on this and be like, that was actually a good idea. I need to do some of that.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I don't agree with this at all, and it like holds on him for a second. You can hear his leitmotif start to come in a little, but then it cuts away.
And then over the years, his leitmotif starts to get more ominous. It changes key.
Yes, Henry Kissinger is in the background percolating, slowly becoming the true psychopath he was always
But
meant
we'll
to
get
be.
to this, but one of the things about this story is how eager the US was to say, like, hey, please knock it off. No, they are not building a hyper weapon. This is idiotic. Just very different compared to now.
What do you mean? They put a rocket on a truck. That's obviously world ending.
What if they fired the rocket? Do you have any idea how fast that truck could go?
It could break the speed limit easily in a school zone.
It's a large ramp with a bunch of school buses, and it's pointed towards Israel. It's like, yeah, tremble.
Set up a ramp towards Israel.
And just fire the rocket
It's at the
truck
Rafah
at
border.
we have obtained intelligence that the Egyptians have hired Evil Knievel for a very dangerous weapons test.
My kingdom for a hands-off, strongly worded helicopter parent America, you know?
Listen, you gotta worry about the Egyptian hypersonic skip glide bus.
the
When America
hypersonic
had the
hillocks,
moral
yeah.
clarity.
Isn't this when Israel still controlled Sinai?
Yes.
Yeah, it is, isn't
So
it?
your rocket truck thing would have to jump the
canal.
river on a
Yeah.
ramp. Like
We've just set up a ramp in Port Said.
it's a one
just
way
like, good luck.
it's a one-way trip because you're not going to be able to jump back over.
Yeah,
so.
we're just loading up the
Yes,
truck with
okay.
airborne troops.
See, now this is so viable for Evil Knievel
Oh,
because he
yeah.
only has to jump the Suez Canal. We could 100% do this.
We're slowly moving into the Fortnite battle bus, I've just realized.
Oh yeah, basically.
Honestly, I think that was definitely like a missed opportunity of whoever was the military dictator of Egypt when Evil Knievel was at his prime. Like,
Anwar
come jump the
al-Sadat.
Suez. Like that.
It's still CC.
Look, I know that there's probably been like two of them collectively. I just don't remember when the transitions
Hosni
happened. Okay.
Mubarak. I know, Anwar al-Sadat got assassinated
Hang
that
on.
one time.
That's usually how many times you can get assassinated.
Yes, fair.
Yeah, hang on. I'm just Googling Evil Knievel heyday. Let's get to the
Probably like
real
80s, I want to say.
Like, it just feels like a missed opportunity to focus like American culturalism onto like your burgeoning tourist industry. You know,
On the other hand,
Yeah.
what better way to prevent enemy attacks than to like get the US on side by like co-opting their culture for your weapons program?
We have to boost the strategic Knievel reserve. We need more of him.
Oh, like doing NASCAR but with technicals?
Hosni, brother. You should have linked up with Evil
Significantly
Knievel and
too
sorted this whole
boring.
thing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would not have, no.
So getting back to this, Isser Harel, the head of the Mossad, is like, he is convinced that this is going to end the world.
Mm.
And whether this is entirely cynical or entirely paranoia, I think it's a good mix of both, because later events will show that, like, he believes this shit. He is not just doing this as a cynical, like, oh, now's my chance to do war. He was also not above lying to the people he worked for. So just 3 weeks after Nasser showed off the missile tests, Harel presented Prime Minister Ben-Gurion with 2 documents that he believed proved categorically that Egypt's missile program was mature and an active threat to Israel. The first was a microfilm obtained by Israeli spies that detailed how the Al-Qahir series didn't have a warhead and was struggling with a guidance system that didn't work. Not very convincing.
And he's terrified. He's like,
No.
fuck! No!
It could go anywhere. We have no clue where
All
it'll
they need
go.
to do is figure out a warhead and a guidance system, and we're basically fucked.
And the second was a sort of pitch document that German scientist Wolfgang Pils had sent to the director of Factory 333, which was building the rockets on site.
The doohickey.
This pitch deck basically said, wouldn't it be cool if we built 900 of these missiles, even though the Egyptians only planned to build like 20? And this is another thing, like when Harel brings this to the US, someone does the math and says like, yo, this would cost like $400 million in 1962 dollars. And they're just like, Egypt does not have the money to do that. What the fuck are you smoking? And I want to reiterate, Isser Harel had all the information to see that the Al-Qahir series was already struggling to build and test already obsolete weapons that didn't have warheads. And he looked at this and somehow took away that they were like dirty weapons, dirty bomb super weapons.
Just gassing up the Egyptians as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah, you have to pretend that the enemy are both incompetent and incredibly powerful.
That's odd. If only there was some sort of word for that.
Yeah.
When your enemy needs to.
So this actually didn't work. Harel's main opponent in this debate was the head of military intelligence, Mir Ahmet. Quote, Ahmet took less than 2 days to come back with a full summary that painted a very different picture from Harel's. Closely questioned by Ben-Gurion throughout his presentation, Ahmet stuck to his earlier view that there was absolutely no evidence that the Egyptians were trying to develop chemical, bacteriological, or nuclear weapons. Nor, even if such an Egyptian program did exist, was there any evidence that the German scientists were involved in it. In any case, Ahmet added, the men at work in Egypt were a group of mediocre scientists who had developed only antiquated missiles, and this meant that the panic that had overtaken Israel's leadership was not just unjustified, but dangerous. And he's going to be completely right every single time. He's the only guy in the room who is just saying, like, he's looking at this little pop rocket and going like, what the fuck are we, like, we have better rockets than this. Why are we scared?
Better and more.
Now, Ben-Gurion agreed with Ahmet and wanted to try the diplomatic route. He argued that immediately jumping to assassinations would jeopardize Israel's relationships with European countries and risked tarring them as a terrorist state. Womp womp.
When was this? Sorry, when was this that he was?
62.
62. All right. Israel had a nuclear weapon.
Oh, yeah.
By that time.
Like, and they were in the process of buying American missiles to carry it. Like, they had the upper hand in every single way.
That's just crazy.
But that's also the thing of, like, whenever you're a powerful country, the existence of other countries' militaries is interpreted as like a threat against you, you know?
Yeah, because you're treating your military as an implicit threat against all of your enemies.
And
you have to assume that
that
everyone else is the same. Yeah. And you have to get really paranoid and scared and like cry and like shit yourself a little bit if you see this toilet paper tube. Crying, throwing up.
Killing
We're
people.
Fucked. It's over for the state of Israel. Yeah, like, and then this guy's like, no, it's not at all. Like they haven't got anything. They've got
come
nothing
the fuck on, guys. We're going to make, and crucially, throughout all of this, he's saying, if we do this, we're going to make things worse. We're going to push Egypt to buy good weapons.
Yeah.
And naturally, this did not satisfy the Mossad. So they did two things. They went to the media and they started the assassination campaign anyway.
Jesus Christ.
Why waste a perfectly good assassination campaign?
Yeah. I mean, we're getting back to it, but this is just, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. Sorry I blew up all those people.
If we say no, then they're going to be so sad. Look at them.
Look at that sad Mossad agent.
It's like they are nowhere near having viable rockets, and they will get no closer if we kill them now.
So the first part was basically a pressure campaign. It's mentioned that back then, like, they were just able to gather all of the heads of all of Israel's major newspapers and just say, like, hey, here's your fucking marching orders. So they were able to, like, selectively leak details or just make them up. And Harel was able to use this to kick up a media firestorm, a moral panic.
Huh.
As a reminder, this is just a couple of weeks after Nasser's public missile test. So there was already a bit of an organic, like, natural media hype going on. And he, like, supercharges it. Like, he's basically able to convince the entire Israeli media and public and a substantial amount of politicians that, like, Egypt is going to nuke us off the face of the earth tomorrow. And it's Ben-Gurion's fault for not letting me kill people. And combining that with the diplomatic route taking a bit longer than expected, like, the Germans were still negotiating, it seems like, in good faith, but they were basically saying, hey, what do you want us to do? Like, some of these guys are German, but we can't deny them travel rights, and most of them are actually Swiss and Austrian, so there's not really much we can do. So with all of that, Ben-Gurion quickly bowed under pressure and approved Operation Damocles. And I love this because even the fucking name is so paranoid. The Sword of Damocles, these missiles are the Sword of Damocles hanging over Israel.
Right.
And then you actually get a look at them and they're just on, like, it's this tiny little thing on the back of a truck that has no guidance system and doesn't have a bomb on it.
But it does have what looks like a butthole on it.
Okay, yeah.
It does have a butthole, yeah. Maybe they just saw that and they're like, this is crazy. Their butthole technology is light years out of ours.
An evil and intimidating sphincter.
So, on September 11th, 1962, Dr. Heinz Krug disappeared from his office in Munich. He ran a procurement company that helped ship specialist equipment around the world, including to Egypt, and eyewitnesses claim he'd been accosted by a young man at night before disappearing. The following day, someone left an anonymous call to the German police reporting Krug's death, which I didn't know you could do. I didn't know you could just call up the cops and go like, this guy's dead, and they will accept it.
All right, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah,
Click.
no worries. Click.
Cool. Someone just writes that down. Like, all right, nice.
No follow-up or investigation needed.
I just killed the shit out of this guy. Okay, just letting you know.
Yep.
Deuces.
I'm not saying anything else, but this guy is dead now. All right, just write that down.
I picked him up. I took him to a place, and he's dead now. I am not filling in any of the other details. Cops are just like, yeah.
Just gunshots in the background of the phone call.
Yeah. Well, first things first, you got to make sure he's dead. Okay.
Oh, wait a second. He's moving around a little bit.
So we don't actually know what happened to him because his body was never found, but it's most often thought that he never left Germany and was killed by the Mossad on site. Then, on November 27th, a mail bomb went off in the face of Wolfgang Pill's secretary in Egypt, Hannelore Wende. It didn't kill her, but it did disfigure her and blind her in one eye. Yeah. A day later, another bomb went off near Factory 333. This one also came nowhere near its apparent target, which was the head of the factory, and it instead blew up and killed 5 civilians and injured 6 more.
Fuck's sake.
Yeah. This also gave the Egyptians time to beef up their security, and the day after that, so over the course of these 3 days, 2 mail bombs go off, and then 2 more are intercepted by security. And from that point on, they get pretty much a 100% mail bomb interception rate.
Why does this package have suspicious wires sticking out of it?
Who sent me what looks like a hot dog pack with a bunch of wires on it?
Getting an Egyptian mail bomb, but there's no like detonation.
There's no actual bomb.
It's just a piece of paper that says boom.
It's just the tube sealed up on both ends, but there's nothing in it.
Oh god, yeah, the Egyptian mail bomb would also have no guidance mechanism, so you just send it off like just wherever.
In the mail, no marking, nothing in it.
Some mailman in Canada just like detonates one day like 5 years later.
Just throwing it over the border because you have no mail delivery mechanism, and it's just you throw it over the Suez and it lands in the fucking Sinai fucking desert or whatever, and it's
feet into the
sitting
Sinai.
there in the sand.
Oh, you know those like hitchhiking robots?
Hitchbot, but a bomb?
Yeah. It's just like, please take me to Factory 333, and it's just relying on people. And it's like, when another note, when at Factory 333, hit this button. And everyone's just like, well, I got to do my part.
All right.
Now, these letter bombs did not work, nor did a threatening letter campaign they started up after.
Oh, a non-bomb letter afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah.
The bombs didn't work. I'm just going to send them a normal letter that just says, "Hey, stop it."
Wouldn't it suck if you sent if you put the letter in what you thought was the mail bomb and it ends with like, "We will not be meeting again." Kaboom. And it just doesn't have a bomb in it, and they're just left reading this like postcard like, what?
I think it's from the Egyptians.
If it was triggered by one of those like little birthday cards that plays the song, has the little like electronic inside.
Imagine getting serenaded before the bomb kills.
Imagine the lack of sophistication in the detonation mechanism, and if you closed the card before it finished, then nothing would happen.
Diving for the card, but you have to keep your hand on it. It's like diving on a grenade.
No, you gotta send the bomb back.
Just get back. Good. Yeah.
So right away, this assassination campaign is not off to a great start. Some sources will generally try and claim Operation Damocles as this like colossal success because eventually most of the Germans go home. But they go home for other reasons. They go home because the diplomatic route works. So far, over the course of a couple of days, they've killed 1 German dude, and they have killed or maimed about a dozen other just completely innocent people. However, in case, like, as morale is flagging, maybe they're thinking this isn't worth it. Maybe they think that that Mir Amit guy is right. They got a shot in the arm because a random Austrian dude named Otto Joklik arrived at the Israeli embassy in Vienna and announced that he was the chief designer of the Egyptian hyper-dirty bomb program.
All right. Interesting gambit.
Yes.
Let's see how it works out for him.
His story made absolutely no sense. The bomb that he described making for the Egyptians was basically like a medical x-ray machine turned up to lethal levels that would fly overhead and x-ray everyone in Israel out of existence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when the Israeli army interviewed him, they immediately realized that he was a fraud and he was not even a real scientist. So needless to say, the Mossad believed it wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
While they would still mail out bombs and try to assassinate scientists here and there where they found them, one guy, Kleinwachter, I believe they try and shoot him, but they're gun jams.
What, just walking up to him, putting a gun in his face?
Yeah, just like, walking up like, click, 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 click,
Say
click,
goodbye, motherfucker. Ding. Oh,
All right, see ya.
See you later. I gotta go.
Quinn, this is like the Kissinger tier stuff. Like, it's like the killing is so casual, right?
Oh yeah.
But when the mission doesn't go precisely the way they want it to, it's so casual they just don't care. They just leave.
Listen, we had vibe coding. Now we're
It's important. It's mission critical to the safety of our nation that this person is killed.
But also,
Except we couldn't do it the way we originally planned, so we're gonna come back to do it later.
yeah, we're gonna workshop this one, guys.
This really gives me, like, because again, I've worked tickets my whole life. This is the person that puts in like the high priority, like do it now emergency type ticket, and then does not pick up the phone when you call them to work their thing that is urgent and must be handled right now. Like,
I've gotten tickets like that where it's like, oh my god, drop everything, and then I send like a clarifying question, and it just goes unread for 3 weeks.
perfect.
That's me. I'm sending those.
So,
You know what this really gives? We had vibe coding earlier. Now we just have vibe assassinations.
vibe killings.
they're just telling the agents, just get out there and just get it done.
You see a German? Just go for him.
Give it your best go, and if it doesn't work out, hey, you tried, and that's the important part.
A fucking Mossad agent weeping to his wife about how he felt so embarrassed because his gun didn't go off. And the guy, Kleinwachter,
just
looked like
staring
me
at
like
me.
I was an idiot. Kleinwachter's just like, hey bud, you want another try? It's okay, man. Like,
It's okay. It's okay. I'll just stand
please
here.
Please stop crying. Please. Like, I'll shoot myself. Please stop crying.
You do
The uwu small
Do
beat.
it like the hit from Breaking Bad where Jesse rolls up to your house, just like he opens a door, gun to the face, click, 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 and then he leans in and just pulls the door back closed. When you open it again, he's gone.
You just hear him futzing with the gun outside. Just give me a minute.
Come on.
You can hear him crying through the door. Fucked it up. I knew this was gonna
Just
happen.
uwu small
So-
beating the Mossad hit squad.
Open the door and be like, hey man, it's okay. It's alright. Don't worry.
At the same time, they get this like insane Austrian dude who they think has like proved all of their points. At the same time, they are like, the government is kind of coming back to them and saying like, what the fuck? Who said that you could blow up a bunch of Egyptians? But at the same time, because this is the Israeli government, they're not like mad about it per se. Just like, hey, stop. No.
I love it. There's no sane Austrians involved in the story on either side.
Basically, the Mossad is convinced for a little while that like they can try less assassin-y methods. So naturally, they hired the famous Nazi commando Otto Skorzeny.
What?
Okay.
And they are apparently going to send this famed commando and assassin off to just like, hey man, peacefully, remember, we told you.
Another insane Austrian.
Yeah.
Just
Okay,
during that time.
Two things. I have no idea who this guy is.
I'm amazed at that.
And two, I love the idea of, hey, Mr. Ripper Killfuck, can you like maybe just go kindly talk to these people? I'm sure that there's a lot of like murder killing that this guy has done. This guy's probably done some heinous shit.
Yeah, I pulled up his Wikipedia. There's a lot
Yeah,
here.
he's kind of famous both before and like during and after the war as like he is the Nazi commando. He, in the same way that like British commandos kind of invent doing commando shit, he does the same thing for the German side. He's the guy who like leads a commando raid to save Mussolini after he's been captured by Italian rebels.
Right, but how much like civilian terrorizing has been done?
A fair bit, because after the war, he kind of becomes a mercenary and everybody forgets about the whole Nazi thing and just hires him.
Me thinking about this where it's like the perspective of, you know how like a privateer is just a pirate who works for a government. So like,
Yeah.
he's just like a serial killer who works for a government, you know, like
Yeah, he's a serial killer who gets paid, which means that he's not a serial killer anymore.
He's just a regular killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's professionalized now.
And the idea with getting Skorzeny, and they don't want him to murder people, the idea is that because they think that all of these scientists are diehard Nazis, which, a lot of them weren't, that Skorzeny would just be able to pull rank on them and order them to not work for the Egyptians.
That's really funny.
Yeah, because at the same time, Skorzeny does have ex-Nazi contacts all around the world. The guy who is handling the security of the scientists in Egypt is also an ex-SS guy who was Skorzeny's protege. So their whole idea is basically just like, yo, you just go up, you do the salute, and you say 9, and then they go home.
Pretty good. That's a smart idea. Like, if the assassinations aren't working, we're going to get, like, who's, like, the dad Nazi? We'll just send him over to be like, stop it.
Yeah, like, give them a nice slap on the wrist and say, like, no. And then things got very stupid.
So I would say it's weird that the Mossad had so many high-ranking Nazi people on their sort of, like,
in their Rolodex, yeah.
I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, and especially for them, the Jewish state, and especially because all throughout this, a lot of the propaganda that is being spun up about how these missiles are dangerous, it's being pointed at Germany. And what's the Mossad is very clearly saying, they are announcing it, they're putting it in newspapers, is that this is Germany's second try. Germany couldn't do it in World War II. They've taken over Egypt, and they are going to do a second Holocaust with these Egyptian missiles. That is the message that is going through the tabloids. And then, yeah, they hire the international man of mystery.
Yeah, Otto Skorzeny. Get me Skorzeny.
But we have to remember, they have 2 Ottos on their payroll, 2 Austrians named Otto. They have Skorzeny, but they also have Joklik, the guy who managed to convince the Mossad that Nasser's missiles actually carried, like, Omega ray bombs or something. Harel made him a spy, a ranking operative in the Mossad, with no more questions, and sent him off to Germany.
The bloke that showed up.
Yes. the dude who showed up and just gave you some sci-fi bullshit. And you're like, my God, like, leading operative right now.
So you're now in charge of this. Sort it out.
Yeah, the Germany dossier is now being handed over to a freaky Austrian guy.
Listen, little do you know, Egyptians are the ones to develop the stone burner from Dune.
So, Joklik's mission was to dissuade Paul Gorka, an electrical engineer, from working with the Egyptians. He did not have training.
Mm-hmm.
He was not told what to do, and he was given latitude to figure it out. So naturally, he fucked it up and started an international incident. While Gorka was well guarded in Egypt, his daughter was not. Heidi Gorka lived in Freiburg, where she worked as a lawyer. And in February 1963, Joklik was sent to make his move. And this pretty much goes about as well as Vasily Stalin trying to kidnap those German rocket scientists.
Mm-hmm.
He just randomly approaches her one night. Quote, "She tried not to let her panic show as he started talking, telling her in a quiet, soft-spoken voice that he knew all about her father's work in Egypt, and adding that Israel was quite determined to stop him from continuing it. All he had to do," Joklik went on, "was to denounce his work and he would be safe. If he does not come back, he will be killed," warned Joklik darkly, claiming that he wanted to give him a chance.
I love the open-endedness of this threat, because if all he has to do is denounce his work, he can keep doing the work. Just say that my work is bad and sucks, and then
I am a horrible person.
I hate this.
Back to work.
I hate how much the Egyptian government is paying me. This sucks.
The average worker denounces their work once a shift at minimum. Fuck this. Anyway.
And it would be even funnier if, like, Joklik accepted that. That's actually what he believed, and he went back to the Mossad.
And then he goes back to his boss, and he's like, I did it.
He's like, yeah, done.
"Sir, I extracted a pinky promise from the target. He will not be a problem anymore."
Not from the target, from the target's daughter, but, like, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Like,
She said her dad
she'll
is
tell
very
him.
sorry.
She holds up a phone and just goes like, "Oh, Dad, you said you're not going to work for the Egyptians anymore? Oh, cool. Love you, click, bye." And just turns to Joklik like, done.
He said, yeah.
So a few days later, Joklik tried to lure Heidi out to the Swiss border because the Mossad figured that if they were caught, the Swiss would care less about the kidnapping of a German citizen than the Germans would. So their plan was to kidnap her into Switzerland and then hold her for ransom basically until her dad came home. She simply called the cops.
This keeps working.
This was apparently something that the Mossad was not prepared for.
It's shockingly effective.
So like she starts being monitored by the cops. They tell her like, hey, let's see how deep this goes. Like, keep playing along, which I don't necessarily agree with. They made her bait for her own kidnapping. This becomes multiple countries, Germany, Switzerland, and Austria are all cooperating to like nab these guys because of how stupid Yoklik is. So Heidi showed up at the planned meeting point with the spies, and she was accompanied by her brother and a German police officer, which apparently Yoklik didn't think anything of. And he proceeded to explain his entire plan to them.
Let's just go right back to the beginning
and
of this.
In fairness, the guy was in plain clothes, the cop.
Yeah, so the fact that he is like a state agent tasked with doing like state espionage tasks, goes to his target of interest and explains the whole thing, just the day one, like before you even got here, like is the fact that he's like, Israel has a vested interest in Egypt not having these rockets. Like, well, okay, well, way to blow any plausible deniability you had in kidnapping this woman. Like, just tell her your whole plan.
It's okay.
I dropped some subtle hints and just saying the whole thing, plain English.
I'm an insert name here, and I work for insert country here, and the insert country here's vested interest is that your dad stops doing things for other countries.
You could say that I have some contacts in Mossad with my co-workers in Mossad, and they're very interested.
You could, like, he's trying to be threatening, but he's just like, you could say that I'm planning to kidnap you and take you over the Swiss border and hold you for ransom. You could say that.
You could say things will turn out very badly for your father.
When I kill him.
Yeah.
Things will turn out very badly for your father when I kill him after you tell me where he is.
To be like, yeah, I'm gonna ring my dad right now. 9-1.
Yoklik just like standing there nodding expectantly.
Yeah. Is he on the phone?
Can I listen? Can I say hi? Can I? Hi. It's Yoklik.
Put it on speakerphone.
And what's funny is that, so Yoklik has another Mossad agent there. They do not attempt to kidnap her. They lay out the entire plan of like, hey, you're going to work with us. You know, we're going to, like, if you don't help us, we're going to kill your dad and you're going to convince him to come home. And she basically responds, yeah, I'll think about it. And then the two parties go their separate ways. And of course, Yoklik and the Mossad agent, they were tailed all the way to Zurich, where they were caught and arrested.
Just high-fiving the entire...
Doing your best.
Just high-fiving the entire way.
Oh, she said she didn't want to. I don't know what to tell you. And just like...
The just leave strategy if things don't work out is such a great... well, time to go.
The best part is, after Yoklik and the Mossad agent left, eventually they split up. But before they did, they went back to a town and got a drink. And I have to imagine he was just like patting Yoklik on the shoulder, like, come on, no one gets it on their first try. It's okay, bud.
Either that or they were just like, bossed it, smashed it, lads, let's go. They're both celebrating, telling anyone who will listen, yo, we just did something fantastic for the
Mossad, guys. Woo!
Yo,
getting fucking sloshed at the pub and then just spewing state secrets.
Just drunk to the point your eyes are floating inside your skull. Listen, the Mossad, the benefits are so good.
I showed up, I was like, I'm in charge of missiles, and they were like, give him a job. Give him a job.
This is also just the story of faking it till you make it. Eugen Sanger is able to fake his way into the Egyptian rocket program. The fucking head of the Mossad is able to fake his way into starting Operation Damocles, and now fucking Yoklik is able to fake his way into being a spy.
Not just being a spy, being in like the second most prestigious like spy organization on the planet, right? Like.
So yeah, Operation Damocles has just been exposed to the entire world. But crucially, the Germans and the Swiss don't announce it right away. They're getting stuff set up. The Mossad immediately know that things are going wrong. So they run to the media. Before the Germans could formally announce the charges, they leaked news that the Swiss and West German governments had arrested brave Israeli civilians who were simply trying to protect their country. And they also publish all of Yoklik's lies, claiming that Nasser's rockets breached international laws and also probably the laws of physics.
That's like extra law breaking. They should get in super trouble for that.
The idea here was simple. Whip the entire Israeli population, government, and media into such a frenzy that the Germans would have no choice but to return the captured agents. And the frenzy part actually worked. Quote, In the course of a frenzied parliamentary debate, some proposed a, quote, settling of accounts with the West German government. Another referred in apocalyptic terms to the German death ray, while the leader of one of the religious parties claimed that we have been led astray and gravely deceived by Germany's statements and promises. So we now have anti-Jewish space lasers.
Fantastic.
I wish I had that charisma, you know?
Jesus
I
Christ.
just wish I had the chutzpah more than anything. I was like getting caught and being like, no, I'm just going to lie again. I'm going to lie again harder.
If I just crossed into the US and like went to Washington and just said like, it's me, I'm the head of Iran's nuclear program. You got me. They would accept that.
Bam, 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 bam.
or more actually, click, 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 click.
Yeah, click, click, click. All right. You're free to go.
He just starts.
Stop looking at me.
Get out of here. Get the fuck. After a failed assassination attempt, throwing rocks at you like you're trying to abandon your dog in the woods. Just be like, fuck off, fuck off.
Get out of Egypt.
Try again tomorrow. It's okay, man. We don't get them all first try.
And while some international outlets published all of these lies verbatim, like the New York Times.
Of course, our favorite source of truth.
Never not on that shit.
And in the wider world, however, it didn't really work internationally. It made Israel look hysterical on the world stage, and it wound up backfiring. Isser Harel was forced to resign as the head of the Mossad and was replaced by Nir Ahmed, his rival, the ex-head of military intelligence, and notably the guy who had been correct about everything all along.
Definitely.
Man, it's almost like this guy should have had this job to begin with.
Yeah, and he ended Operation Damocles immediately. I'm just like, all right.
Yeah, it's like, what are we doing here? Why are we wasting our fucking time with this?
That's actually kind of true, because whenever he took over, the first thing he did was he wanted to do an audit of like, hey, where the fuck do we have agents? And he would just find agents and kind of go like, why the fuck are you there?
I'm doing Mossad Doge. Let's go.
And also the fact that the Mossad is like famously interdepartmental rivalries. The fact that an army intelligence guy just took over meant that like everybody was fighting him and hiding shit from him. So yeah, it took a little while for Damocles to wind down.
It's that beautiful, like, seamless democracy that you really get in a definitely not massively paranoid nation. Everyone works together so flawlessly. It's interdepartmental communication.
All on point, yeah.
No one is panicking.
And Mir's main focus once he took over the Mossad wasn't in continuing the assassinations and intimidation, but in containing his predecessor's fallout. With a lot of finessing of the media and pressure on Swiss politicians, he was able to get Yoklik and the other agent off the hook on minimal sentences.
These guys were too fucking stupid.
Yeah, just going to them and saying like, guys, come on, the Mossad are professionals. Do those guys look like professionals to you? No? Checkmate. As far as the German, Swiss, and Austrian scientists, some were driven off by threats, but most were simply lured back to Europe with the offer of more work closer to home. That's kind of their thing. They'll just work wherever the work is. The impact on the Al-Qahir rocket program was also basically minimal. The rockets were well past the design phase and into production, so the scientists weren't necessary anymore. However, that does not mean that the Al-Qahir series were good weapons. They still lacked basically any form of guidance and were little more than a propaganda tool for Nasser, which apparently he was happy with because he never pushed for more development work.
Yeah, smart. Oh, we got rockets? Done. Nice. Next. My union's collapsing a little bit.
I am
distracted right now.
a union of one country. Egypt is so united with itself, guys. I also want to go back briefly and talk about Otto Skorzeny, because I realized that we kind of derailed onto the Yoklik stuff.
Yeah.
Right up front, there is no agreed upon truth to Otto Skorzeny's involvement, even in different Mossad documents. Far from being the only ones to work with him after World War II, the Mossad was just his latest customer. He had a reputation for working for just about anyone, and relied mostly on his daring reputation during the war. One of the main reasons the Mossad had hired him was because he had actually worked with the Egyptians just a few years before, and he had good contacts in Cairo. Which, if I were the Egyptians, I would be nervous about your ex-spy showing back up. Anyway, different sources give Skorzeny different roles in Operation Damocles. In some, he was the Mossad's personal hitman in Germany. He was the guy who killed Heinz Krug, and he was the guy who failed to kill Heinz Kleinwachter. In others, he was sent to recruit high-ranking former Nazis, many of them his actual protégés who were currently working for the Egyptians. So like I said, the guy who handled security for the Al-Qahir rocket program was, trained by Skorzeny. And in one source I found, he steered clear of Operation Damocles altogether because he thought it was a failure. So, what is known at the very least, I tend to lean more towards the, like, trying to use his contacts thing. But at the very least, we know that they did attempt to recruit him.
Me not putting Operation Damocles on my resume because it sucked so bad.
This was a gap year, don't worry about it. Had to really stop and find myself.
The Al-Qahir series.
Now, with all of that sorted, I want to go back and take a look at the Al-Qahir series of missiles themselves. As far as the design, they were pretty crude, even by the standards of the time. The Soviets and Americans were busy building all kinds of ballistic missiles from short-range to intercontinental. Meanwhile, the Conqueror series was estimated to top out at around 300 kilometers range, and if they wanted it to fly that far, it could only carry a truly pitiful 60-kilo warhead.
That's fucking nothing.
Incredibly puny in terms of rocket terms. It was not an effective weapon, and it played no significant or even meaningful role in any war that Egypt fought. More so than any of the media fear-mongering, this really puts the lie to the idea that these missiles would rain nukes on Israel. They weren't capable. They physically could not do it. Still, I do think that it is a huge technical achievement for Egypt to have built them at all, considering that they started with nothing. And as we've talked about briefly before, the Al-Qahir program did have one catastrophic problem. While the engine and payload and staging were sorted out over several tests and years of development, the missile never got a guidance system. It was the world's first ballistic firework.
You kind of want the guidance system. Now, I'm no expert personally. It feels like you want to have some kind of control over where it's going. Although, of course, not my department.
I'd almost be more intimidated in like a nuclear mutually assured destruction sense by someone just going like, I can launch it. Who knows where it's going? Maybe it'll hit you. Maybe it'll hit me.
Yeah, all of my nukes, no guidance system. I press this button, they just go.
Yeah, they're just trying to do like the equivalent of like I'm crazy, man. I'll nuke myself.
I'll nuke anyone for a price.
This would work. You wouldn't fuck with them.
No, but yeah, to get back to the guidance system, the Wasserfall, the surface-to-air missile that all of this was based on, had its own, it was radio guided from the ground, which meant that literally no one who worked on the program knew anything about guidance systems. And in 1963, we talked about, I mentioned some of the trickery before. Instead of waiting years for the guidance system to be finished, the Egyptians just tested what they had, and they sort of kludged together a system that could kind of do the job. Since many of the German scientists had worked on the French Veronique rocket before, they stole the guidance system that rocket had used, which worked like this, quote, 4 cables attached to outriggers mounted on the fins and to a drum located beneath the launch pad unwind as the rocket ascends. These cables stabilize the Veronique until a sufficient velocity is attained to ensure that aerodynamic fin stabilization is present. So it's a fucking marionette. That's the only guidance system they ever have for these things, is that they have a couple of wires attached to the fins that they can like tug on the wires to guide, to like pull it in the right direction like it's a fucking horse.
That's what the hell?
Yeah, like just put like desperately.
You want it to be more sophisticated than that, a little, like just like a little bit.
Just like desperately tugging on the right wire as the missile flies to the left towards the viewing stand.
No.
Tugging on, you're inside the missile as well.
Yeah.
You just got these wires.
Evil Knievel's inside the missile.
Evil Knievel's in there.
Operationally, the Al-Qahir series of ballistic missiles was also a failure. Even without the guidance issues, the missiles were obsolete by the time they were deployed, and only armed with a small conventional warhead, they were of very limited military use. Some were likely fired during the Six-Day War in 1967, and the rest were used in the Yom Kippur War in 1973. That last is particularly important because by 1973, Egypt had a better missile. They had the Scud.
That we all know and love.
The king of missiles.
God.
I know.
The AK of missiles, yeah.
Exactly as some Western analysts had feared, the failure of Egypt's domestic weapons programs like the Al-Qahir missile, and they also had something called the HA-300 fighter jet they were trying to build, those had all failed, and it had simply pushed Egypt into the arms of the Soviet Union, who were more than happy to kit them out with all of the best jets and missiles.
Thinking about a fighter jet made with the same sort of design philosophy as
the
totally
wires.
rudderless missile.
It's completely unguided. There's no pilot. It's being marionetted through the sky.
It's like, it feels like you have to put a little more effort into the fighter jet.
Because it's going to be a person in that one, ideally.
Don't worry, they can just they'll fly based on vibes entirely.
They're in there with the wires.
They have to follow the missile. They have to stay within a slack of the missile to guide the wires.
That's why they have the truck with the rocket on it.
Yes. So the guy in the front, he's got all
That's
the wires.
That's the pilot of the missile truck. And
he's pulling double duty. He has to drive himself and the missile.
This weapon system is becoming more and more complicated with the launch vehicle.
But I mean, once he's at the terminal guidance phase, the pilot can just like parachute off the rocket. It'll be fine.
I wonder if they ever tried to mount one of the missile trucks on the launcher of a Scud. Like it's just on there with the Al-Qahir, but it also just has the truck bolted on.
The truck is integral.
So after all of this effort to try and build themselves their own domestic missile program, Egypt wound up buying Scuds, and they were actually the first combat use of the Scud. During 1973, they fired Scuds on Israeli troops that were crossing the Suez Canal. They wind up being the first operational use of these Scuds, and that one missile, that one Scud, did more damage than every single Al-Qahir combined.
Oh, it worked.
Yeah, I don't know that I don't want to say the lesson is only buy your shit from superpowers, because that's not the lesson. But like,
the lesson is just buy Scuds.
The lesson is buy your shit from superpowers and then fucking figure it out yourself while you've got them there. Like, you have to have some sort of deterrent set up to give yourself the slack necessary. Another thing is that practically every country in the region, they wind up buying Soviet Scuds and then they just build their own. They modify their own. Yeah, exactly. So like they have domestic versions of these Scuds and they're able to develop their own off of that. Like Iran, for example, a lot of its ballistic missiles are based on the Scud or based on North Korean provided missiles. And they just set up their own versions. Nice. So, but yeah, trying to go absolutely from fresh. Hell yeah, to North Korea. Yeah, tough. Especially with no domestic manufacturing capacity. Once
and
again,
with Parts Corp isn't there. Sanger in charge.
Yeah, a guy with no idea what he's doing. You've got the Z team there. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult to run a weapons program.
Legacy.
Now, the legacy of the Al-Qahir series of missiles and Egypt's entire domestic rocket program is a complicated one. Nasser wanted the Arab nations to become as self-sufficient as possible and not just play roles as proxies of whichever Cold War superpower. Part of that was building up not just domestic military production, but also having like the local education and infrastructure to back it up. They wanted Egyptian rocket scientists as well as Egyptian rockets. There was also an obvious element of propaganda and prestige in his actions. He wanted to be the unifier of the Arab nations, and something as sci-fi as a rocket program was a great way to show his, dedication to a bright future. But the program failed. It only produced subpar rockets, and for decades to come, wars in the Middle East would be defined by imported weapons, especially Soviet ones. The T-55, the AK-47, and the venerable Scud. Of course, mixed in with a whole lot of like French, American, German, it's the mixing pot of weapons exports. And just like continually feeding into this cycle of, well, we have to buy it from somewhere, and that means that arms producing countries are always more than happy to sell. And while I obviously don't want to let the Israelis off the hook, I do want to be honest and say that I don't think Operation Damocles did anything to impact Nasser's rocket program. The scientists they imported were like third-rate morons. The rockets were already designed by the time the operation started, and they were in production. The scientists didn't matter anymore. And they never even got good guidance system regardless of Damocles. Like, the Al-Qahir was a failure from start to finish, and Israel still, they went ballistic over nothing.
They gassed themselves up until they did something stupid, then repeat ad nauseum.
Yeah, and in the end, even in terms of getting people to leave, Operation Damocles did not actually do all that much. It killed one guy, and the others were all, a bunch of guys pretty much just flat out said at that point, hey, you can keep threatening us, I'm not leaving, I'm not going to respond to bullying. What actually got these guys to leave was the diplomatic approach that they always wanted to do anyway. It was just saying hey, the European Space Agency is now a thing, come home.
Weird that. I wonder if there's any sort of lesson to draw out from that.
I always think back to like
I don't think so.
one of the big drivers for early space cooperation in the 90s was a national security one, because suddenly you have a whole bunch of Soviet rocket scientists who are unemployed. And if you're a senior rocket scientist, it is in the, people have decided it is in the interest of world safety that you never be unemployed. Because who knows what the fuck you could do.
That's fair. You don't want one of these guys tinkering in his spare time.
You don't want to make garage.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, the garage nuke, yeah.
And
I keep it in my basement.
And it all also just fed into this infinite arms race. Nasser wanted the missiles to match capabilities that Israel already had. When he paraded them around in 1963, Israel responded by buying better American missiles. When it became clear how ineffectual the Al-Qahir series was, Egypt bought Scud missiles from the Soviets. As historian Roger Howard put it, quote, "Whoever one pins the blame on, the fact that the use of violence and force and the threat of their use easily spiral and become self-perpetuating, thereby fueling mistrust and prompting rivals and enemies to spend along the same destructive path." So, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can't bomb your way to a lasting peace.
No, my wrath is pure and my anger is justified.
Yes.
The oceans of blood that I will spill will bring peace eventually. Quinn, I'm also having stupid idiot brain looking at the Scud truck because I'm seeing a face with the headlights as the eyes and the smile, and then the radiators, the nose.
Oh no, I was seeing
I thought you meant the clouds. Because there's two clouds and then a little happy smiley face.
Oh, we got two faces, huh?
Yeah.
How about that?
Everything about this missile is happy.
I see the face with the headlights. It's just incredibly wide.
I saw the face with the headlights, yeah.
Launching the Scud and it explodes. Could a sad thing do this?
The Scud missile launcher in the Cars universe.
oh, that is a cursed concept.
This is what we talked about with the vibes. The reason why the Scud was successful. The Soviets prioritized good vibes into that weapon.
Listen, that warhead, it's full of confetti.
It's like the Stuka dive bomber. It's got a horn that as it dives it makes a sound, but it's just playing one of those little party blower sounds.
These are actually peace heads. There's no explosives of any kind. It's just sort of confetti stuff.
It's a present.
Chocolate.
Conflict resolution pamphlets. Yeah,
The first ever de-escalatory missile.
So, yeah, everybody, that is the story of Nasser's Cold War Egyptian missile program and Operation Damocles, and how it all kind of, I don't know, it feels like a nothing burger because the missile was a piece of shit and the Operation Damocles also didn't work. But it's still, I feel like it's so emblematic of this constant spiral of paranoia and violence and weapons buying and fuck. I was going to ask how people are doing, and then I went away with it.
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right, Apart from all the stuff, personally, I'm pretty okay.
I did great. There's so much stuff going on in this episode.
There's a lot of fucking stuff.
We got some new players. We got some returning champions.
But
this is so funny.
Yeah, listener, thank you for bearing with the schedule on this one. Thank you for listening. And Devon, thank you so much for coming on this episode.
No worries. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a real treat.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Just you two, though. Not you.
Oh, that needs to be our questions from the Legion thing. We need to start asking what's your favorite Chris?
Yeah, finish the episode and be like, okay, so now that you've spoken to us all for 2 hours, who's your favorite?
One of them will live.
Yeah, me asking the fucked up and evil question. Who's your favorite person right now?
Well, I can only see Quinn, I'm forming a much more personal bond.
That's true. The camera is still in a box on my desk. I haven't taken
I'm just
it
the
out.
world's stupidest LLM talking into your ear.
I also don't know if I should be seen.
I could absolutely though. I keep coming back
reasonable.
to Audio Yoklik, and I could absolutely see him approaching Heidi Gorka with the other Mossad agent of just could you settle a debate for us? Which of us do you think is better at our jobs?
Who do you think pulls off the assassin look best?
They're walking away and they're both shoving each other. No, I'm gonna talk to her first. I'm agent in command.
They gave me the black bag, not you.
Just a phenomenal buddy comedy.
That would rule.
I think we're slowly constructing the same guys that we did during the episode that Nova was on for.
Well, yeah, anytime, because espionage
Helpful to me.
is exclusively done by morons.
It really seems like that's the case, and I know that can't be, but
I think they've just faded to fall into that line of work. Just it attracts them. They're like a moth to a flame. They can't avoid it.
I guess if you're employing guys that show up and lie to you on the doorstep, then you are probably not putting together the most robust intelligence agency.
Which does make me wonder if that's just like the norm for Mossad recruitment is you show up at the embassy, you spout some incredible sci-fi bullshit you made up, and then you're just like, you're second in command now.
You could run this shit on Kash Patel.
Oh, God.
Like, if you just rock up and be like, what's up? I'm the Chinese government.
Space laser?
I've got some shit to talk to you about. Yeah.
Just replacing Dan Bongino.
Entryism easy as hell, actually, it turns out.
Well, he likes going on podcasts. Maybe we could get him on a podcast.
Just subtly hinting that you should all be given like high-ranking jobs throughout the course of the podcast. It's got to seem like his idea when we're done. It's got to seem like his idea. Or
leave him guessing. Just make like sly remarks to the
just got to keep
German
gassing him
death
up.
ray, to the Chinese Death Star, and just leave like after the recording. He'll come back and just like, hey, like, could you like tell us more about that? Like, sorry, I got more podcasting to do.
I'll need to be on the payroll if you want to hear about the Jewish Chinese space lasers.
I feel like this has been stupid enough. Listener, thank you so much for listening to this. Goodbye.
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 Thank you to everyone who has signed up to support the show, and a big shout out to all of our top tier patrons. Our cyborg cats are Boss, Katiga Reptile, Charlie, Comrade Sleepy Bro, Daniel F, David R, Jesslyn T, Jorg 2, Buzz Aldrin Simp, Kamo, Lane of the Wired, Matt, Mobius Striptease, Mysterious Stranger, Nerd Beast, Noah, Number Negative, Oil Drum, Pat, Paul C, Space Northpaw, Spectre Cohen, Tortilla Baron, Vivek D, and Wingsmith. Our space dogs are a Union Thug, AV, That Guy is Best Guy, Agent Carter, Angie, Angry Old Man, Yada Yada, Anthony C, Otto Fox, Baron M, Batbay, Ben L, Boomzilla, Caleb, Cantaloupe Was Taken, Chainsaw Snuggling, Charles G, Cole C, Cat and Lag, CSD 2016, Daddy Bongo, Double Time, Dr. Shockmaster, Ank, Aaron, Eric J, Fractal Moonlight, Furious Luddite, Grant K, Heiko S, Howl's Moving Pictures by Rush, Ian R, Ian W, JM M, James C, Jamie K, Jarl Breadmaker, Harry M, Jedediah D, John C, John Tastic 20x6, Juan, Carathago, Delenda Est, Kate B, Kate D, Corbin the Dog, Lenswipe, Lorgath, McLean C, Mar, Marto, Maritza, Moomin Instrumentality Project, Nicholas S, Nick, Norman W, Northeast Driver, Outlook Cove, Panda, Peepee, Perm, Poopbutt, Randall, Rato B, Sam A, Scott K, Sean H, Sensual Kazoo, Shannon M, Sean P, Smut R Us, Sophie L, Sparks, Spirit of Thunder, Swanee, The Best Sean, Thomas M, Tim P, Toasty Ken, Trash Do, Barash T, Brisk, Will W, William O, Zap, Zim, and Zombie Dwarf.
Albert count, 142.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Failure to Launch. If you want to follow us, we are Failure to Launch on Blue Sky and FT Launch Pod on Instagram. We also post our episodes with visual aids at Failure to Launch Podcasts on YouTube. FTL intro and outro themes were provided by DJ Danarchy.